At National Drug Screening, we provide drug testing to employers all the time, but we also provide drug testing every single day to individuals across the United States, in all areas of the United States. So stay tuned. In just a minute, we're going to cover the questions that individuals ask us about individual drug testing. Welcome to the National Drug Screening Video Blog Series. I'm Joe Reilly, President of National Drug Screening. Today, we're going to talk about drug testing for individuals. John Q. Public, anywhere in the United States, needs a drug test today or tomorrow or next week. We can handle all of that. We have some full-time drug testing specialists that take calls every single day from individuals that need a drug test. My guest today is Tom Fulmer. Tom is our Vice President of Business Development, and Tom oversees our individual drug testing operation and our drug testing specialists that answer the phones and answer the questions. They all report up to Tom, and he does a great job training them and helping them with their job responsibilities. I asked the team to compile the top 10 questions that we get about individual drug testing. So Tom, thanks for being here.
Yeah, appreciate it, Joe. Looking forward to it.
And I'm going to ask you the questions.
All
and
right.
See what kind of responses that we get.
Sounds good.
So all over the country, individuals call and they need a drug test. My friends often ask me, they say, Joe, why would an individual need their own drug test? And I say, well, there's lots of reasons. So let's dive into that. Tom, what type of drug tests are available for an individual?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. There's a lot of different kinds of testing out there, and that's one of the things people don't sometimes realize. You know, there's hair testing, urine drug testing, oral fluid drug testing, blood drug testing, and there's actually some other specialty types, fingernail testing, and other things done across the country. And so there's not only a lot of different specimen types out there, there's a lot of different drugs that can be tested for, and there's a lot of different reasons that people go through to do that. You know, one of the things that individuals don't typically do is they don't just get up in the morning and go, you know, I feel like taking a drug test today. I wonder if I've been doing anything or not, right? You know, so there's a lot of different reasons out there and a lot of different resources for individuals when they do need to have drug testing.
Okay, and I know one of the bigger questions is how long does it take to get my results?
That is one of the very important ones that come out there. And that really varies depending on the type of drug test that you're getting. Some of the drug tests may take a longer time, but just a basic urine drug test, maybe for just a personal test or probation or court testing or testing a family member, you know, just a basic urine drug test may be available in 24 to 48 hours. There's actually some drug testing that can get results the same day if that initial screen is negative. So literally within an hour or so, you could potentially have a result. You know, if you're taking prescription medications, then, you know, that may take longer and have to go to a laboratory to be confirmed because that's a bit more complex. So your time frame is going to vary based on what you're trying to accomplish as that individual and what type of test that you're doing.
Okay, so you mentioned if you're taking prescriptions, so when I go to give my urine specimen, did I tell them about my prescriptions?
You know, that's a really good question because we get that question all the time. Somebody will call up and say, well, I've got all my prescriptions ready, and I went to try to tell the collector, you know, what they were, and they wouldn't take my prescriptions, and I wanted to know what was going on. You know, the way the drug testing process works is you have a drug screen provider such as ourselves. We set up the drug testing at National Drug Screening. Then you have collectors that take that authorization form to collect the specimen, whether hair, urine, oral fluid, and they actually package that specimen up and then send it to the laboratory where it's actually tested. That's a certified laboratory. It's typically overnighted to that lab. And they're the ones that actually go through and do the testing. Now, once that testing is complete, it has to go to a medical review officer. That's a certified physician, certified to review drug testing results, and they review any positive results that come through to find out if there's a legitimate medical explanation. And so that's the person who you're going to have a conversation with about any prescriptions, because only that doctor is going to be authorized to review those prescriptions and verify could that prescription or medical situation have caused whatever that positive result is. So you need a physician who's certified to be able to do that. So that comes at the end of the process, not the beginning of the process.
Okay, so it sounds like, the whole thing about having prescriptions doesn't really come into play unless there's a positive test from the lab.
Exactly right. So even if somebody was on a prescription, there are things called cutoff levels that to prevent false positives. So if the laboratory confirms the result and the confirmed result is negative, there's no reason to review a prescription. There's nothing to verify in that situation. So only if the lab confirms a positive result would you have a situation where a prescription was even necessary. And plus, you wouldn't want to give your prescription information to just anybody out there. At least most people would not want to do that.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a little bit of a doctor-patient confidentiality situation. You don't want to just give your prescriptions to the office where they're collecting your pee.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
So another big question is what drugs are tested for?
Yeah, and that's kind of an ever-changing thing, and it really depends on what drugs you want to have tested for. But you can test for most any type of drug that's out there, prescription medications. You even have some capabilities to do some things that are maybe not prescription, but most testing is going to be some type of prescription medication, or it might be for illegal drugs. So there's everything that you can think of out there that's a prescription drug that probably has some type of test for it. Now, there are certain types of drugs that can only be tested with one specimen type or another. So there are some limitations depending on what drug test type you want. If you're using urine, you can test for probably a broader range than maybe hair or oral fluid. You might be limited on the choices you have as far as what you can test for those. But the most common ones are amphetamines, methamphetamines, marijuana, cocaine, PCP, opiates like heroin, codeine, and morphine. And then your most prescriptions like barbiturates, benzodiazepines, even fentanyl, that's becoming bigger to test for these days. Your hydros and oxys, those are, the opioid epidemic. We've heard a lot about that. Those are some of the more common ones, but then you have substance abuse situations where you might have other things like Suboxone or buprenorphine or even some things that were previously, not regulated that are now, like tramadol and gabapentin and other things. So there's a lot of different options out there.
Okay. So I know I listened to one call one day, and the person said, I'm on probation, I need a drug test, and then how do they know what drugs to test for?
Yeah.
Where do they find that out?
Well, if somebody's on probation, I'm sure they have no idea why they got arrested in the first place. They probably didn't get arrested for any drugs at all. That's why they're on for drug testing. So they probably have at least an idea of that. But their probation officer or the court is going to determine what test it's going to be. But for probation, it's typically going to be your basic 5-panel test or 5-panel test with alcohol. There are situations where it may be something beyond that as well. It might be a standard 10-panel test.